Holy crap, bro. The casting of Frank Stone is an absolute piece of trash game. You have no idea how bad this game is. For one, the game has a sort of diversity squad of people, but not really. I mean, some people are a little bit androgynous in their racial makeup. For the most part, everyone's white, though, okay? It's just there's some people you're like, well, that person's not exactly white. Okay, whatever. What really is more woke than anything else, because, you know, for the most part, everyone's white. Some people are just androgynous, and you're like, huh? But what is more woke than anything about this game is the outright feminism of the characters. How downright unlikable and specifically masculine that the women are. The game is littered with career women. The women are more aggressive and disrespectful to men than the men are to anyone. The men are pussified soy boys, effectively speaking. These are guys, literally, you have a sister in this game. It doesn't matter if she's an older sister. She is a goth piece of trash, loser, probably overdoses on crack cocaine like every day. This biatch is absolutely terrible to her brother. Her brother treats her with respect. He asks small things out of her, and she's like, yeah, you know, screw you. And she's trying to size him up like she's about to fight him. And it's like, biatch, if you fight your brother, he is going to destroy you. The only reason you will win the fight is because he refuses to fight back, which just means you're freaking abusing the guy. You need to freaking back the F off and show some effing respect. It was ridiculous. I couldn't even believe that they went there. But I mean, that's feminism for you. That's feminist writers. Anyways, the story's dog trash. Literally the scary element of this game does not happen for the first, as I remember it, 3 hours and 27 minutes of the game. So literally for the last 1 hour, the game is 5 hours long. It only gets, air quotes, scary 1 hour and 30 minutes at the remainder of the end of the game. Before then, you're just going through boring dialogue, boring exposition, getting to know some of the worst characters that you can ever imagine getting to know. These people suck. These are the worst characters. And here's the thing, man. Until Dawn was the best game by Supermassive. That is so clear. But it's not just that. Until Dawn was the only game that they made that was somewhat legitimate. But guess what? Guess what with Until Dawn? The game was only good for the first half. It had the most tension, had the best build up. It was scary, and then it kind of falls apart. It loses a lot of the tension in the later section of the game. Every game that's come out since then has gotten lamer and gayer and more diversified, more melanated. When we look at this game, it starts with a forced black guy cop during a time era where it's like, what black guy, kid, whatever, is going to be a cop? I mean, this looked like it was like 1960s or something like that, or 70s or 80s, and it's like, how many black people were cops during that time? Like, big question mark, not many. Okay, it's so jarring, and it's so clear that they're just trying to force diversity into the game. Okay, but then the women are absolutely awful. They're not attractive. They're not sexy. And they literally play up this horrible, horrendous, feminist chick that wants to be the best movie producer ever. By the way, who are the best freaking movie directors and producers? Men. Anyway. But yeah, she has this over-aggrandized ego. She thinks she's the best, that she's just gonna make it. She's gonna get somewhere. And the guy, who's a cuck to his sister wants to beat him up and all that stuff and size him up. He is the freaking boyfriend of this terrible movie producer chick that we meet in a flashback in the game. Because we don't actually meet this chick in the game. She dies, I think, like later in the story. Because basically a good portion of the game is a flashback. By the way, the timeline is all over the place in the story. It's so bad. It's so hard to keep up with. Again, the characters suck. The dialogue sucks. The dialogue is just downright bad. It is woke, you know, in the feminist sense. And then it's just woke boring, you know? And this is a thing I've spoken about in previous games that we've spoken about. But there's this issue with woke boring. Something is woke, but it's just boring. So it's like, it's not even really that offensive. You see, like, it's in the tapestry. It's in the very nature and spirit of the product. It's woke. But then it's just boring. So it's soulless woke is what I really mean. It's soulless woke. The story is terrible. Again, we spend 3.5 hours with crappy characters who are just complaining and talking to each other and having drama, forced drama everywhere. The game sucks. The story never picks up, ever. Near the end of the game, you have a lot of characters that get slaughtered by the bad guy. You know, the monster that you basically summoned, Frank Stone. Okay, who cares? Who cares? Dude, all the characters were awful in the game. You hate them all. So when they're dying, you're like, whatever. I don't even know what to say about it. I mean, yeah, the deaths are horrific in the game. On Frank Stone. Frank Stone dies in the prologue, by the way. That is such a flip on how Supermassive typically do their games. Because Supermassive, it's typically the person, the victim in the beginning of the story. They're the ones that die every time. So then they flipped it and they made it where the villain dies at the beginning of the game. And then he gets resurrected and he comes back as a Cthulhu creature through a ritual, basically demonic ritual. So that's the story. I mean, bunch of crappy characters. And by the way, I skipped after a certain point. When I got to the 1 hour mark, I started losing my mind. And I was like, this is so bad. This is so boring. Literally, the writing's terrible. The story's terrible. The characters are absolutely awful and woke. Specifically, feminist woke is really what we're talking about here. And I just sat there and I was like, I don't want to be here. I do not want to experience this game. And I skipped ahead. Once we were like 2 hours in, and I was watching the game, by the way. Why would I buy it? I'm so glad I didn't buy it. Don't buy these games. They suck. Oh my gosh, dude. How can you be such a bad writer? And this is something I said. I don't care about your qualifications. If you can't write a good story, and by the way, a lot of these people, they pass through universities. How is it that you have a university degree, but you make dog trash stories? And this is a lot of companies where people, apparently they have an education in doing this work, and they suck at their work. And there are people, by the way, who don't have an education in this work, and they do better. So what the frick did you educate yourself for? You're useless. Your existence. You should not have been hired. You don't belong in the industry. There are actual good writers out there. And by the way, I swore this when we were watching the game. I said, this game was absolutely written by women. The writing style is female. It happens to turn out, as I understand, I think there was a female on the writing staff. By the way, I'm getting some games mixed up because I'm looking at so many games in their credits. I'm starting to mix it all up. But I believe there was one female for this game that wrote for it, or it was two females, I forget how many. And there was two dudes who were the lead writers. And I was like, no way. So, by the way, this is a thing. This game was written by women. Now, I don't know why it showed male names in the credits. There's the whole thing about it. Typically, they don't show you all the names, by the way, in the credits and all this stuff. Even if you look it up on like Wikipedia or anywhere, IMDb, if you go onto all these different sources, everyone's going to have different information. There are names you will never find unless you go to certain sources. It's really weird, but anyways, apparently some dudes were the lead in writing for this game, which I'm like, what is going on with modern men? I mean, these are the only dudes they will hire, are these woke dudes, but still, what is happening to modern men that now supposedly, they're writing like women? Or is it that they're concealing female writer names? By the way, there's many games that they do this. And they also don't share with you the consultancy companies that change the writing of these games. They don't tell you this. Diablo 4 clearly got wokeified somewhere within its development. That's a game. They won't show you a lot of the female names. There's women, a lot of women who worked on and a woke consultancy company. I have no clue who, but it's very clear that they worked on Diablo 4 once you get past Act 2. No, it was part of Act 2 has a little bit of wokeness, but you can tell the main writer got hijacked for Diablo 4. You can tell where the female writing starts taking place. The shift of the tone happens dramatically. This is happening with a lot of modern day products. It's very clear. We are having a lot of female writers. Their names are being concealed for whatever reason, whether they're involved with consultancy or not. And you have a lot of these writers, they're just writing like women. Makes no sense, but it's so bad. And this game was written by women. I don't care if it's a dude that says he's a dude. I don't care. You're a woman. You wrote like a woman, you're a woman, all right? Just that simple. That's all I have to say. And you have many games like this. Many games. Anyway, man, I've been taken aback many times recently, seeing like female names where they don't belong, but specifically seeing male names on the writing staff when you're like, no way. There's no way a dude worked on this. Because, by the way, I know what female writing is very well. I have really analyzed and looked at this stuff for a long time. You know, and I don't think it's very difficult to know the difference in the end, you know, because all you have to do is just look at how men write. It's very different, but I know these freaking feminist hoe bags like the back of my freaking hand. And somehow with this game, apparently we had male writers, male lead writers. And yes, by the way, there were women who worked on this game. Don't forget that. Women who worked on the writing. Anyway, dude, this game, and here, you know what? On the spot, just casting of Frank Stone, writers. Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna show me all the names, but yeah, it shows, I think, 4 dudes, I believe. Or is that 3? Anyways, I have no clue how many. But here, like on IMDb, we can look at it here. There were a lot of dudes worked on this game. In this game, the writing turned out as absolute dog trash. And it reeked like women wrote for it. But yet we were shown these names of dudes. So weird, so strange. I have no idea what's going on, but whatever. There's so many games that are like this. So it is embarrassing, it is pathetic. Bro, when I went through the freaking game and I was just losing my patience with the story, I asked myself, how and why was this made? And also, this is embarrassing. To do this poorly with the writing of a game, this is embarrassing. Because like I was going through the story and I was like, holy crap, I'm sitting down and I'm already thinking of a better story up in my head than whatever the frick this writer created. And the reality is, they should have hired me. Now, by the way, I'm super busy. I'm like, seriously, I'm super busy. I'm super busy. So it's like, don't hit me up. But still, you need to hire someone like me because I will actually make you a good story. I will write for you a good, scary story that holds the tension, has a good beginning, middle, and end. There are writers who are like me. They would do a good job on a game like this. And I sat through this game and I was like, I want a good writer for this game. I want a good writer for a game like this that I can actually sit down and enjoy a story. But this freaking story was dog trash. And I felt like I was wasting my time once I was an hour in. And again, I started skipping through a lot of the game. I was playing it on 2 times speed at one point, and I was like, this is going too slow. Literally everything that happens in the game was too slow. And at some point, I just rushed myself to the end of the game to see how the characters in the different timeline in the future of the game, I jumped ahead to see them all die, and I was like, okay, it's so bad. Oh my gosh. So in the end, bro, I mean, this game was it was laughable. It was insulting. It was not scary, by the way, not scary. Again, it was boring. It was just meaningless melodrama. By now, by the way, I've been playing so many games recently. I mean, geez, after this game, I played Star Wars Outlaws. And I haven't made the review for that. I mean, I am, by the way, very soon I'm making the review for it. But I'm making this before I make the Star Wars Outlaws review. So there's so many games I've played by now, I forget a lot of elements now already of the story of this game. But I will tell you this, there's so much melodrama. People will be having arguments. Some of the most feminine arguments will just rise up. Literally, I think the guy that's dating the movie producing chick, he sits there, as I remember, unless I'm mixing it up with a different game. Again, by the way, we're going through a game rush right now, so I'm mixing up certain details of different games, and it sucks because everything's a blur for me, and it's like, because I'm paying attention to Dustborn, I'm paying attention to all these other games. There's so many games right now. But anyway, you have these guys. The dude that's dating this chick, He won't talk to her, as I remember, unless I'm thinking of a different game. I'm sure I'm not. He won't talk to her like a woman doesn't talk to a guy when she's upset. He's like, oh, whatever. I can't with you. And this chick, by the way, she is basically the archetype of an autistic, nerdy male that is a perfectionist who's pursuing after a career, right? That movie producer kind of archetype, the nerdy guy that's like super autistic, hard to get along with, all that stuff. That is her archetype. As a woman, they implemented a male archetype, autistic archetype, by the way, onto a woman. It's so ridiculous. It's just another aspect of how we keep on trying to masculinize women. It sucks. I hate this game. I hate the characters. The women suck. They're not effeminate. They're not sexy or attractive at all. And they try to force the freaking romance between movie producer chick and her boyfriend dude who's racially ambiguous. I think he's supposed to be like Spanish, like Hispanic something. I don't know what. It's one of the most forced romances. I mean, they're getting all like cozied up on each other and she's like trying to kiss him and it's like supposed to be something that you're watching and you're totally not grossed out by. But the whole time I was watching these romantic scenes between herself and her boyfriend, I'm like, oh, it was so freaking disgusting. It's like, this female has a disgusting face. This female is annoying. This female is a man in a woman's body. What the frick? It was so bad. This game was so bad. It lost its pacing. And by the way, if you cannot catch someone within the first 20 minutes of your game, you probably have no business, for one, making a game, but for two, you lost them and you deserve to have lost them. And more specifically though, typically with video games though, it's actually at 1 to 2 hours. You want to give a game 1 to 2 hours before you make a decision, should I drop the game or continue with it, right? Because the first hour to 2 hours for most games, not all, it will show to you everything that you are going to expect as its full value at 1 to 2 hours. But there's certain games, especially story games like this game, if it cannot capture you within 20 minutes, because some games, right, there's, stories in general, some stories are slow, they develop over time, and then it starts to ramp up, right? And typically the best stories actually start off slow and it ramps up. But if you do not know within the time of 20 minutes, and that's a lot of leeway, if you within the first 20 minutes, you cannot figure out a way to entice the viewer, to keep them engaged for a story, dude, you lost. You made something terrible. That's what you did. And that's what they did here. I mean, I lost interest in the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It was terrible. It's like, you guys have no business what you're doing. I've already checked out. If your story ever gets good, well, you freaking screwed it up because they did a horrible job here. The execution of the writing, the execution of the characters. Supermassive is a hack company. I can't believe they're still going. They did terribly on their anthology series. Then they did terribly on the Quarry. What are you guys doing? Seriously, it's so bad. So anyways, man, I went through this game just being disgusted. I went through this game being absolutely disappointed. And it's so funny because I actually walked into this game, I was ready when I was doing the watch through. I did a live stream and then I later uploaded it. So when I did the watch through for this game, bro, I was sitting there and I was opening up the video and I was like, oh bro, this is gonna be so bad and it's gonna be so woke. And then I sat there and I stopped myself and I was like, oh, you know what? I don't know what to expect from this game. We're gonna see. And then literally what I expected is what happened. Of course, I've seen a lot of their other games. I already know where they're heading. But, and by the way, I'm not interested anymore in any future Supermassive games. I'll do a video for like the first 20 minutes of the future games. I wasted 2 hours and 30 minutes, I think, on this game. And then I ranted for like an hour at the end. So the video overall is 3 hours and 30 minutes. But it was absolute dog trash. The game was so bad. The story was absolutely horrendous. So laughable. This game was made for homosexual queers, by the way. This game was made for freaking homosexuals. Freaking dudes who they have nothing better going on than to follow a story that is okay, and also lesbians, by the way. These homosexuals who have nothing else better going on, they don't know what a good story is, and they'll never make a good story. I mean, that's just a simple fact, but whatever. That's all it's for, though. It's for this loser audience that for some reason these developers, for a long time now, they are pandering to. I don't know why. It's so crazy to me because this is a horror game movie. There were no sexy women. There were no sexy scenes with sexy women in this game. That's a staple of horror movies. Sexy women throwing their shirts off, either completely naked, which is, yo, what's up? Or, I mean, because we got that in, like, for instance, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We had Diora Baird and Alexandra Daddario. They were both sexualized so extensively in that film. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. They're so freaking hot. Anyway, those women are just amazing. But this is a trend in so many horror movies, having sexy women. This Supermassive refuses, ever since Until Dawn, they've uglified women one game after another, more and more, and they have refused to sexualize any women past Until Dawn. By the way, Until Dawn barely sexualized the one chick who's kind of passable. She's not even that attractive, by the way. Frick. They do not understand the recipe of a freaking horror movie, horror game. And this is the crazy part, by the way, coming from me. I hate horror. I don't even pay attention to horror. Okay, by the way, kind of funny. I have paid attention to a lot of horror games. I have, but in the end, it's not a genre I love. It's not a genre I know the best. I know the best, like action games, fantasy, stuff like that. But I mean, bro, holy crap. Like, again, I could make a better horror movie or game than this. What the frick? And I'm not saying it would be bad, by the way. I'm just saying, like, my specific domain is fantasy. But even I could step outside of what I typically do, and I could literally fill in for whoever the frick failed at this freaking game. They failed at their job. I am beside myself. How the frick? Bro, like, horror is at the bottom of my fiction. Fascinate? Okay, well, hold on. There's some horror that's good, but I like, I like more of the psychological stuff. That's the stuff I like way more. So stuff like Dracula, I like that. Even though Dracula's not really horror, it's low-key horror, right? It's like fantasy horror. I like that kind of stuff. That not as something I really seek out, but it's good, right? When someone does a good job at it, I like it. I have not yet read, by the way, H.P. Lovecraft. I have bought his stuff, and I will be seeing what it's like, but if it's good or whatever. But there's some good stuff out there. I do like when someone does it well. Fantasy horror can be really good. It's not something I seek out, though, because I hate the genre. Because why? Horror is made for liberals. That's number one. Horror is what? The loss of the ideal, the loss of absolute or utmost value, is the psychological state of what do you do when you have nothing else? What do you do when you are in a state of depravity? That is what horror is. That's why, by the way, liberals, they love, libtards, they love horror genres the most out of anyone. And typically, more conservative people, they love fantasy more than liberals. And that's just a simple fact. Like, mostly conservative dudes love stuff like Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars, George Lucas. They love this kind of stuff. It's actually liberals who do not love it as much. Of course, you have a contingency, but dude, just look at what liberals want to do to these properties. They always deconstruct them every freaking time. It's very clear. Just pay attention to these people. Pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to what they think. You will very quickly understand more conservatives love things like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, go down the list. There's a bunch of other things. I mean, definitely freaking Warhammer. That is made for dudes who are more conservative leaning. But I mean, it's just so much of fantasy is made more for conservatives. It always has been. And that's kind of the case as well with mythology as well. Anyway, liberals, they love their freaking horror, though. They love it so freaking much. And that's what this game is. I mean, well, okay. Not to get carried away with it, though, of course. But I mean, this game was made for freaking libtards, ultimately, and the game's awful. I don't understand who the frick they think their audience is, because it doesn't exist, for one, by the way. And that's why I was saying I don't want to get carried away with what I'm saying here, because there's a lot more details in all this. But by the way, I'm not going to spend long on this freaking review. I hate this game. I don't care about this game. Quite frankly, I don't want to go into a long conversation about anything else. I can always do that at a later time. I'm not going to go into it. By the way, in past videos, I have gone into it. The difference between conservatives, liberals, the fact that liberals, they freaking love horror a lot. And again, it's because it is, what do you do when you're in an absolute state of depravity and poverty, right? Because in a horror scenario, you don't have any resources at your disposal. What am I going to do? How am I going to fight the big bad killer? It's always a state of everything's lost. What do you do? And that's why they love it, because they're obsessed with, terrible outcomes. Catastrophism. By the way, catastrophism is not specifically a thing for liberals, but liberals, they love horror for the catastrophism of it all. It's a weird dynamic. Anyway, I think I probably have some more thoughts to share on this game, by the way, bro. But I'm gonna be real with you. I hate this game. I lost my patience with this game. I did not want to sit down with this game. I hate this game so much that I do not want to waste time on this review on anything else than just everything I've said already. So listen, man, this was terrible. This was bad. Again, everyone was ugly. No women, sexy women, specifically sexy women with thick, tight breasts. None of such women were sexualized in this game. What the frick? You literally screwed up. If you're gonna literally bore me in your freaking horror game for 3 hours and 30 minutes. By the way, right? Okay, I don't need to say anything about that. Anyway, because right, I only saw the game kind of for 3.5 hours. I rushed through the game, right? And I skipped around. Anyway, the game overall is 5 hours. And dude, listen, if you're gonna bore me for the first 3.5 hours, then you need to do something. Throw in sexy chicks, give them pillow fights, give them shower scenes, give them walking into a pond, doing something and being naked, okay? And show off side boob, full boobs on a sexy chick. Do that, and then you have a great game. Then I would be like, wow, I'm bored right now, but this is great. And it would all be worth it in the end. But they didn't do that. By the way, Diora Baird in freaking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, super freaking hot. And Alexandra Daddario, super freaking hot. Holy crap. And there's a bunch of other horror television shows and whatnot. They've done a lot of stuff with sexy women in them. Anyway, love that stuff. I love the sexy women. That's all I care about. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the game. It's absolute dog water horse trash. I can't believe anyone would ever pick this up. What the frick? Anyway, that's enough from me. Now let's get into the Star Wars Outlaw review.